This is Test Drive Off-Road, released in 1997 thanks to Elite Systems partnering up with Accolade. I think they probably should have delayed it until a few years later, mind you. You wanna know why? The simple answer is that the potholes you drive over in this game have more depth than the actual game itself does. They get straight to the point about what you'll be driving in this game, what with the giant Hummer on the front of the case. Another greatest hits version for me as well, which is surprising given how well this game reviewed with critics and my own feelings towards it. We also apparently get a hot soundtrack from some bloke called Gravity Falls. No idea what it sounds like though, as I had to mute it straight away to avoid a copyright strike on this video. I thought gravity was meant to pull anyway, not fall over. Flipping the case over, we waste absolutely no time with listing off every single one of the entire 4 truck manufacturers that are in this game. Although, is a Jeep a truck? Not sure. The back of the case actually does a really good job of selling the game to you. I like it. We're apparently in for a wild ride with the world's hottest production 4x4 vehicles. We'll be doing things like taking on 12 treacherous off-road tracks, which I'd hope so given the game is called Test Drive Off-Road, racing with multiple camera views, and if my cat had thumbs, then I'd be facing off against him in tense multiplayer competition. Just tense though, not intense. I'll give it to Elite Systems. A cockpit camera, or in-car camera, whatever you want to call it, in 1997 is actually quite groundbreaking for the time. Few racing games had that, and the only games around that time that I can think of right now that did were Formula 1 97, or for some reason Formula 1 Championship Edition if you lived in North America. Alright, let's finish up staring at the back of the case and get this game booted up.
Hi, I'm Bob Fitzgerald, and welcome to Test Drive Off-Road.
Oh, hi Bob. Now, before we get further into this, my expectations are quite high. The back of the case does a good job of selling the game, and my experience with the Test Drive series has generally been good. This is the 4th Test Drive game to be made, but what I didn't realize at the time is that this is actually their first installment on the PlayStation. Whilst Test Drive 4 released the same year, it was after Off-Road had done so. I thought this series was all about doing championships to unlock and then buy more cars, which, well, as we can see here, I was very wrong about that assumption. Maybe that's why I got this game for just $2.50. We've got 2 options to choose from for some form of progression in this game, which is the Mixed League and the Class League. The Mixed League is all vehicles racing together, and the Class League is just one manufacturer racing together. They each have their own individual cup. Before we get into those though, let's do our standard tradition and take a look at the options first. I've already been in the sound options section just to turn off the hot soundtrack and shut Bob up. Sorry Bob, but you talk way too much in the races. Outside of that, we have a difficulty level which only applies to the first 2 cups and practice races, and a weird option called friction. No idea what it does, but I left it on anyway. I probably should have tested what it does when it's off, but whatever. One thing I want to point out in this options screen though, is when we go to save or load. I had my mind slightly blown here, because when you save or load a game, or your options, there's a progress bar! I've never seen that before in all my time playing PS1 games. A weirdly nice little feature to have, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that in future games I play on this channel. Alright, I think that's it for the options screen. Let's get into a championship. We'll start with the Mixed League ones first and go from there. You have 6 cups to choose from, but you have to go through and win them in order to proceed on to the next one. The first 2 cups are on easy difficulty, or the difficulty you set in the options menu. The next 2 are medium difficulty, and the final 2 are hard difficulty. As you progress through the cups, or difficulties I guess, you have a different requirement to move on to the next race. Easy had no finishing requirement, medium wants you to finish 3rd or above, and hard, you have to finish second or above. Let it be noted that I found this out the hard way. I was a good chunk of the way into the first medium championship and I finished a race in 4th. I'm disappointed, but we move on with things, right? Well, actually no. You get a nice message that tells you that you failed to qualify for the next race, and then you're sat staring at the main menu again. Then you realise you haven't saved. Then it hits you that you just lost like 15 minutes of progress, and you're back to the start of the championship again. Amazing. Right, now you've seen some gameplay. Let's get into why I think this game was released too early. Let's take the first race here, for example. It's a simple loop, so it should be an easy race. You accelerate off the line. The speed builds. You're going off a few jumps. We're off-road, remember? And you're having a blast. But something feels off. And then you quickly figure out why, as you go face first into the barrier as the track turns right and you don't. There is absolutely no draw distance in this game, and it is terrifying. That first corner could almost be classified as a jump scare with how quickly that just did or didn't appear. I guess they had to sacrifice the draw distance to get more vehicles in the one race then. No. Wait, it's not that. No. You know those finishing positions I was on about earlier? Yeah. So there's only 4 people per race, including you. 4. Games that were released a year or 2 prior, such as Formula 1 and Destruction Derby, had at least 20. The game seems to run well enough, so maybe it's a design choice to have just the 4 competitors per race, but oh my god, it makes for incredibly boring races. Unless you manage to get yourself massively out front, which even then doesn't last long when you do, you just end up driving around in one massive clump like you all got welded together on the start line for some reason. That is until the AI randomly disappears off into the scenery, leaving you very confused. Until you realise that they're just taking a basically impossible to see shortcut that will either put them miles ahead, or spit them out side by side with you in a few corners time. I tried to spot these shortcuts myself when I was going around. I really did. But with the low draw distance, I couldn't tell if I was about to head off into the scenery never to be seen again, or pop out up the road somewhere perfectly fine. I think about 95% of the time I was taking a shortcut, it was because I followed another AI through it. Even then, I wasn't entirely sure where I was going, or if I was on the right path. Especially if they ended up running into a tree or something stupid whilst they were doing it. Some races I genuinely forgot shortcuts were a thing that existed, and I got really confused when all of a sudden I was fighting for 3rd place and not 1st place, even though it looked like no one had overtaken me or the guy I was fighting with. You know what else the shortcuts for this game did? They highlighted a massive flaw in the game. The AI in this game is not good at all. It's just outright broken. Yes, I know. During the PS1 and PS2 days, on arcade races, we had rubber banding AI to help keep the races entertaining. Yada yada yada. It was just implemented really badly here. If you cast your mind back to about 20 seconds ago, when I was on about shortcuts and not knowing that I'd gone from 1st to 4th all of a sudden, yeah. After that, the brand new leader of the race would then all of a sudden end up about 15 to 20 seconds out in front through the power of rubber banding. You and the AI around you had made no mistake at all, not a foot wrong, and the leader was just gone. There's no catching them after that either. They're long gone. You have to resign yourself to the fact that you'll be finishing that race in 2nd place at best. There is good news though. You absolutely do not need to worry about that happening with the other AI in the race. They won't come close to breaking free from you. They'll just stick to you like glue. You could crash multiple times, do a couple backflips, get going again, and they'd just be around the next corner. Or 2. It made no sense. It was like they just stopped dead. Actually, it's not like they did. They just did. I saw it with my own 2 eyes once. They would speed around a hairpin at basically impossible speed, and then just stop dead. As I drive past them, I'm just sat there like, what are you doing? The thing that annoyed me about this the most though is the fact that it happened so much. Regardless of the difficulty you're on. Well, actually maybe it didn't happen on easy, so that was a cakewalk. But my point still stands. Some races, I'd make so many mistakes and yeah, okay, they're gonna disappear at the road. But a lot of the time, it just seemed to be that you took one shortcut to get to the lead, I made no mistakes, and then they broke the laws of physics for a bit to make sure you didn't see them ever again. Let me be clear. I have no problem with the AI doing this if I'm making mistakes and driving like a grandma doing her weekly shop. But when we're neck and neck and then poof, they're just gone? Yeah, that sucks. But yeah, it didn't seem to be one race or one AI in particular or anything. Sometimes you'd get through an entire cup without it happening, and then the next 10 races you do, it happens on every single one of them. It can really mess up your championship too. With the way the point system is laid out, and the fact that the other drivers in the other brackets, or splits, or whatever you want to call them, end up basically getting a perfect score each time, you have to work your ass off to win that championship. If you don't win a few races in the season, you have no chance. Overcoming a points deficit of even as low as 4 points felt quite impossible. Nothing worse than getting to crunch time. You gotta win the race to secure the cup, and one of them decides to break the laws of physics to leave you picking up second at best. I'm so glad you're able to save in between races because I needed it. Finishing a race for me was basically a case of, okay, how's the championship looking? Alright, we're leading or within 2 points of the leader, time to save. If it was a crunch time race where you had to win the race to win the championship and the AI vanished up the road, then it was just an instant quit and load the save again, because I ain't got time for that. I'm not redoing an entire cup because of this. Alright, I think I'm done ranting about this now, you get it. Nice. So that's the first cup completed. Now we just have 5 more to go, and then the class cups after that. The next cup was of course on easy difficulty again, and I got through it without any issue. It was at this point though that I began to notice something. The tracks between these two cups were incredibly similar, and the races in each cup followed a format of 2 races with 3 laps each, 2 races with 4 laps each, and 2 races with 5 laps each. Maybe that's just a quirk of doing the easy cups. So let's continue on to the first medium cup. After finishing this cup, I noticed the exact same pattern, and very similar races again. It felt like every cup was basically the same so far. And yes, indeed, nothing changes between the cups. There's no different requirements, no different vehicles to race with or against, just the same thing repeated until eternity. All that happens when you progress through the cups is the difficulty changes. The cups don't have their own unique selection of tracks with different lap counts or anything like that. Every single cup has a randomly generated track each time you move on to the next round. And the same can be said for the bracket or group of racers that you're up against. If you reload your save, you'll notice that you get a different set of people in your bracket each time you load, which you can actually use to your advantage. If I knew the championship was close with a round or 2 to go, I'd try and make sure that the person I had to beat was in my group, so I knew for a fact that me winning the race meant I'd at least outscore them by 2 points and I could take the title thanks to it. Sometimes my genius amazes even me. Bob didn't seem to care about that either. Anyway, that aside, unfortunately, Test Drive Off-Road just has no depth to it. When you win a cup, you unlock a track that you most likely just competed on for use in single player. And when you run out of those, then you move on to bizarre unlockable vehicles that aren't even trucks. I mean, look at this. A monster truck. Okay, actually that one counts. But then it's things like a buggy, an RC car, random things like that that don't feel like they belong next to the trucks you've just been driving. And on that topic, unless you have a huge loyalty to one of the brands of truck in this game, then there's no reason to drive anything other than the Land Rover, because that clearly has the best stats out of all of the vehicles available. If it wasn't for the class leagues, then I would have used just one truck this entire game. One. Which I guess is 25% of them, but still, it's an awfully small sample size to go off. Going back to the cups themselves, I think there's a bigger issue with them other than this game having no depth though. It all just felt the same to me because of the fact that the tracks were randomly generated. You'd end up playing the same 3 or 4 tracks over and over again thanks to each cup having 6 races. You couldn't tell one cup apart from the other. They had variety with the track locations thanks to having dirt, snow, and I was going to say sandy desert then, but a desert is the definition of a ton of sand everywhere. Anyway, they could have done something with this, and they just didn't. Why? The 6 cups would have been much better if they did something along the lines of theming them to a particular area. 1 cup for dirt, 1 cup for snow, etc, etc, you get it. Maybe there weren't enough tracks in each location for this, but best I could figure out, they had 3 tracks for each location, and then each of those could be reversed, so with some quick math, that makes 6 tracks, and matches what a cup would do anyway. That could account for half of the cups in the game, and then, well, I don't have any idea for the other 3, but I'm sure they could have cooked something up to have some variety with those. It's really disappointing, honestly. You know what else didn't have depth either? The truck handling. I can count on one hand how many corners you needed to actually use the brakes for. Actually, maybe I needed 2 hands, but my point stands. These trucks lost speed so quickly when you stopped accelerating that there was almost no point to braking other than for really tight hairpins. Half the time you're in the air anyway thanks to the ruts and divots in the track surface, and funnily enough, these things don't have air brakes. There were a few other weird quirks with the handling too. If someone can prove to me it was the way I was driving, then fair enough, but sometimes it felt like your truck just completely bogged down coming out of a corner. Say you come out of a corner and there's a long straight in front of you. You start accelerating and you know your truck can hit well into 90 plus miles per hour, maybe even over 100. Knowing that, you'd expect to reach that consistently. For some reason though, you didn't. There were a lot of times where I'd come out of a corner and accelerate, only to just not really go anywhere and come nowhere near to reaching top speed. And then the next lap, you do nothing different and you feel like you're going warp speed as you pass multiple AI at the same time. It was so frustrating because it meant you couldn't even rely on having raw speed to outdrag someone to the line. It just also really messed up my braking points, or well, more like stop accelerating points, because the speed I was going at varied wildly lap to lap. There was also another weird thing where the rear of the car decided to just overtake the front for no reason when going up a hill. And when it does this, you cannot fix it. You can steer in the opposite direction all you want, but it's like the game just completely ignores your inputs whilst you careen off into a barrier. You know, other than this huge list of issues though, I did enjoy this game. I just wish there was more of it. I did finish the game. I did all the mixed cups and all of the class leagues. Got all the tracks unlocked, got all the bonus cards unlocked, and then that was it. Time to call it a day. Like I said earlier on, it's disappointing. There was a good base here for them to work with. It wasn't going to be the next Gran Turismo by any means, but it could have been better. The poor execution here has really turned a mostly alright feeling game into just meh, poop. I don't know how to describe it really. And as I said at the start, the critical response at the time of its release reflected that. Most scores seem to be around the 50 to 55% mark. Maybe I should pick up Test Drive 4 as well, just to see if they managed to do anything better. Maybe they were able to learn from some lessons from Off-Road. Oh well, at least I got my $2.50 worth out of this game, I suppose. I got a good, I don't know, 10 hours out of this game. And also, to be fair, I suppose the couch multiplayer could have got you a few more hours of entertainment. Should I expect more from a racing game? Maybe not. But in a world where the words DLC and patch didn't exist in console gaming yet, oh how I miss you, it left you just asking for more.